just so you can see how much more compact the tree is in the end. But that's kind of where we are at this point in time. I'm going to continue doing a few of the guy wires for the larger branches to bring those into position, and then commence to wiring all the small twiggy branches so we can kind of move them into position. I got a lot of, because this tree's never been trained as bonsai, again I keep repeating myself on that, but I want to stress that point. I have a lot of branches that are within the same trunk have crisscrossed on their own just by competing for light and what have you. I need to bring those out and spread them out so I can develop those nice foliage pads that we normally see on a finished bonsai tree. And I still feel that the tree is a little branch heavy for the final design. The tracery of twigs is too dense, and I think the amount of branches still on the main structure of the tree is too dense. I'm thinking of possibly eliminating this one altogether, clear back down to here, which would leave an open spot here, so I'm not sure what I would do to fill that in. You know, over time there would be something else that would sprout out of one of these two other branches that are here to fill in that void. But those are things that I can always do down the road as well. You can never put something back. You'd have to regrow something, hope something would sprout. You can, I mean, once you take it away, it's gone forever. So I'm going to continue to work on the tree. We'll revisit it again when we get a little bit closer to being finished. I may try to also do a close-up of the branches after they've been wired, so you can kind of see what it looks like when you wire all the branches out so you can position them. This tree is going to take 2 days to wire, and it would probably take 2 to 3 days to remove the wire once the wire starts to dig in. So this tree is going to be a lot of work this season, but I'm glad I have it, and I'm willing to do what's necessary to make it right. So that's where we are at this point in time. I'm going to continue on, and we'll come back here in a little while. Okay folks, we're about halfway through the wiring on this side of the tree and the pruning it back. I am still considering bringing it in a little bit more at the bottom, but then I got to take more off the canopy, and I'm kind of concerned that it's not going to be as uniform if I do that. Of course, I have to allow for growth next season, so everything that's here is going to end up being here, and everything out here is going to be out even further. So I do have to take that in consideration with the growth habits of this tree. These buds and the internodial distances, like we explained before, are so short that I can get away with bringing it in more. But I'm running into a problem in the back here if I bring it in too much more, where I'm going to have just large branches and none of the fine tracery of twigs left anymore because of the way everything was growing. I have had to remove a considerable amount of branches on the tree. I knew it was way overpacked, and it still has quite a few that don't belong that I'm going to continue to remove. But overall, I'm still excited with the tree. I've got a path. I'm going to continue wiring, and we will come back to the tree at that point in time. I'm going to go ahead and do a little 360 for you as of now, so you can see where we are as far as the progression of the wiring and the branch selection goes. And we'll go ahead and do a little bit more, revisit it again. And here's the side I haven't obviously wired or trimmed yet. You can kind of tell where it's not as manicured, I guess you could say. It's a little wilder. I also want to take into consideration one of these sides being slightly larger than the other side to balance it out, because this tree right now, the planting angle is not quite where it belongs. Planting angle is going to be more towards there. So it's another factor we have to consider. But I think overall it's looking like a really majestic natural tree in anywhere that you could go and find one in a field somewhere. I mean, I can imagine a tire swing off this side or a tire swing off this side, you know, tree fort inside there. It's just shaping up to be a really neat tree. So we're going to continue with it, and we'll revisit it when we get closer to being finished. Thanks. Alright, here's the finished product for this season. I still have I feel I still have a few too many branches still on this tree. There are some that are not in the correct position that need to be eliminated once another back bud or another back bud that pops and I allow it to grow a shoot will come into play. When you're styling a tree like this, you always want to try to remember, you know, you want your thickest branches at the bottom and they get progressively smaller as they go up, as well as come out of that same branch. So you want your thickest portions of your branch on the inside, and then they get, you know, progressively smaller as they come out further. I probably eliminated, well, I have it sitting right here, I'll show it to you. I got a half a wheelbarrow full of branches and twiggery that I've removed from this tree. And you're going to want to do that to an extent when you're doing something like this. This tree was in a nursery container. It was in that big square box. That thing was completely full of roots. Matter of fact, it was so full of roots when I went to get it from the nursery, they had to put a shovel up underneath it because it had started growing into the ground. So you want to kind of balance the amount of root mass that you leave with the amount of canopy. Now, of course, the more canopy you leave, the more energy that's going to get into the tree, which is going to create more roots, but at the same time, the more demand for water and nutrients the upper portion of the tree is going to have. So you want to kind of make sure you have a balance between those two, so you know the canopy is not demanding more than what the roots can provide and vice versa. Let's go ahead and do a quick 360. This tree will remain in this container for at least 2 to possibly 3 years. This one's going to be a little different than most. We're going to remove the wire when it starts to, you know, you start to see the branches swelling it around it. And I'm not going to let anything grow freely on this tree from here. From here, what I'm going to do is, well, let me rephrase that. If I get a shoot pop in a location that I need a branch, I'll let that grow freely to about maybe 6 inches, and then I'm going to cut it back. The remainder of the tree, I'm just going to keep cutting back and cutting back and cutting back. That's going to make this canopy a little more dense. It looks very sparse right now, but believe it or not, once this thing is in leaf, you will not be able to see any of the tracery of these twigs. I mean, this tree is just going to be completely full of leaves. And we'll do an update on it June, July-ish when we do a Journey to My Benches summer update for 2013. And you'll be able to see the progression of this tree from now, what it looks like now, which looks like I've murdered it, which really I've done it a favor. I've thinned it out tremendously, which is going to allow sunlight to get down inside the inner portion of the tree, which is going to allow the smaller, finer branches that I have back down inside the tree to get sunlight so they'll grow. What happens a lot of times, and what was happening on this tree, is the outside canopy gets so dense that the inner branches don't get any light, and when they don't get any light, they die. And matter of fact, I got a dead one right here. I didn't remove. So that's why you want to continually thin these out. So let's go ahead and do a 360 over here. I'll go ahead and zoom in on it and do another 360, and then we'll stick this one out on the bench and see what happens. One other thing I wanted to go ahead and point out real quick is if you look, I have, and I'm sure you see them, I have these guy wires going down to the corners of the container here. And if you look here, you can see how the guy wires got the edge of the pot up. It's not necessarily level. I'm not really concerned with that. There's no roots over there right now. And by the time this tree's ready to repot again, I'm going to have to do another decent root reduction, so at that point in time anything that may have grown over there is just going to be superficial roots anyway. So not a big issue. I did have to put quite a bit of attention to get a couple of these branches back there in place where they belong. At first they were sticking straight up, and the only way I could get them back to where they belong was to guy wire them, and I had to put a decent amount of attention to get them to move where I wanted them to. So not a big deal. Let's go ahead and do a close-up on it real quick. Fertilizing regime on this one is going to be a little bit different as well. get the full view of everything, but at least you can get a close-up of the inner portion, inner development of the tree. Fertilizer regime on this is going to be a little bit different. What we're going to do as far as the fertilization on this is I'm not going to quite fertilize this as much as I would my trees that are in development. What I do with my trees that are in development is I pump them up with nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium. But the main ingredient is nitrogen. And the reason I use the nitrogen obviously is because we want to get a lot of growth. If you want rapid growth of twig and root, you use nitrogen. If you want a lot of root growth, let's say you have a tree like, for instance, the trident maple that we did the chop off when we were at the nursery. Didn't really have a lot of roots left, so what we do is we actually use potassium and phosphorus with that in order to get root growth, as well as a little bit of canopy growth. So nitrogen's for canopy and leaves, greenery. Phosphorus and potassium is more for roots. It needs all three, but depending on what you're wanting to do will determine how much of which you want to utilize. And we can go over that in another video, because I could make a whole video on just that by itself. Where the tree is currently on camera view is where I perceive the front to be, somewhere right about there. Let me just take a look to make sure. And that's how I've designed the rest of the tree, is for that to be the front. Couldn't zoom out just a hair. There we go. If you look here, you can see it's got a really nice flare. Number 1 branch is back corner, number 2 branch is front corner. You never want it obviously pointing straight forward. None of the branches from this perspective are shooting straight out at the viewer. They're all off to the side one way or another. And then once you get up here, they're going more sort of upwards versus straight forward, so it doesn't look like you're getting poked in the eye. That's pretty much it. Let me go ahead and show you the amount of twigs I removed off this tree. It's considerable. That's what was removed off the tree. I mean, that's how much was removed. So I would say probably 50% or more, maybe 55–60% of the tree as far as the twigs were removed, to coincide with about 55–60% of the roots were removed on the tree. So that'll kind of balance it out. But don't get me wrong, I mean, these things have, the internodal distance on these things is phenomenal. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's just everywhere. There's node here, node here, node here, node here, node here, node here. I mean, they're very, very compact, so you can get away with removing a lot. And when this thing comes out in spring, it's just going to explode with new growth. So I'm not concerned at all. It does, like I said, look a little gangly right now, but as soon as spring arrives, all bets are off. Thanks for watching.